we're going to start a little bit. As I said, you won't even have enough to do homework or anything, so don't stress about that tonight. We go into solving inequalities in one variable. Officially, if you look, this is no new standards because it's solving inequalities. However, I disagree because we haven't done this to this extent, okay? So, we're going to start talking. Is this what you're telling me about? Thank you. Okay. Sorry, okay. So we're going to start by talking about, before we go into actually looking at, the inequality and less than, greater than, but just being able to talk about, okay, given this polynomial, where does the polynomial equal 0? Where is the polynomial positive? And where is the polynomial negative? And do notice it does say we're determining the real number of values. So we're not, doing anything fancy or anything here. But we're also going to talk about using a sign chart. Now, part A. When does this polynomial equal 0? You guys know how to do this part. When does this polynomial equal 0? Find the zeros, yes. So how would I find the zeros when this equation is already in factored form? Okay, could you set each part equal to 0? Yeah. Where is 1, 0 going to be? At -3, yes? So one of the places we will equal 3, or equal 0, is at -3 because of x plus 3, correct? Okay. Where's another place we're going to equal 0? Okay, so, yeah, if we do x squared plus 1 equals 0, it ends up being x equals the square root of -1. However, the directions say determine the real number. And what do we know about the square root of -1? It's imaginary. So we don't need to worry about that middle factor. Okay. What about x minus 4? There's going to be a 0 at x equals 4, correct? Okay. So this answers part A in terms of when does this polynomial equal 0? Now, curiosity. Do you remember anything? This is earlier in this chapter, I believe. Multiplicity.
Yes.
What's the multiplicity of each of these? Okay, remember multiplicity, and this is a good review. If you're staring at me thinking, what is she talking about? Okay, this is good review. Okay, so folks, stay with me here and focus. Multiplicity is the power on the factor. So x plus 3 has an invisible power of 1. So that means there is a multiplicity of 1 on the factor of -3. What about the factor of x minus 4? Has a power of 2, and so there's a multiplicity of 2. Now, tell me, is my graph going to cross or touch the x-axis at each of these zeros? Okay, it's going to cross at -3, and it's going to touch at 4. Remind me, why? Even and odd, yes? If my multiplicity is odd, it just crosses through the x-axis. If my multiplicity is even, that means it's going to go touch the x-axis and turn directly around. It doesn't actually cross through it. Okay. Now, for B and C, I don't know, I'm going to get stuck in the middle of this, I'm sure. We're going to talk about where it's positive and where it's negative. So positive is going to be any place my graph is above the x-axis. Negative is going to be any place my graph is below the x-axis. In order to do this, we can set up what I'm going to call a sign chart. And I'm going to set up a number line right here. Okay. And I made it long just so I have room to work. And as I said, this is what I'm calling a sign chart, because you're going to hear me when I continue these notes tomorrow referring to sign charts. And this is a sign chart. On this sign chart, I'm going to put my zeros. What are my zeros we already came up with? negative 3 and 4. I'm just going to evenly space them. I don't need to put numbers between them or anything. Those are my two key numbers. And we're going to look at each section in between. So in order to figure out to the left of negative 3, whether the graph is positive or negative, we can take a value and test it. What's a value that is left of negative 3? Negative 4. Ross says negative 4. Kaylee could say negative 5. Carly could say negative 6. It doesn't matter as long as we're all left of negative 3. Okay? I do tend to use negative 4 just because it's easy there. But we're going to test this section with negative 4, meaning go put negative 4 into each of these parentheses. I don't want to know the value in terms of a number, but is it positive or negative? What do you know about negative 4 plus 3? Negative 4 plus 3 is negative, correct? What about negative 4 squared plus 1? You square something, you get a positive, you add 1, it's positive still. So that's positive. What about negative 4 minus 4? It's negative, but what are we doing with it? Squaring it. And so when you square it, it is a positive. What do you know about a negative times a positive times a positive? It's negative. So this section of my graph to the left of negative 3 is negative. My computer's saying 11:09, which means the bell's going to ring on me. Okay? We'll do the same thing tomorrow between negative 3 and 4. What's a good test value between negative 3 and 4? I'm going to pick 0. Okay? Totally agree. You can pick another value, though, too. We'll pick up at this awkward spot tomorrow and see what we can do with everything. Okay?